Hello and welcome to Jurassic Reviews. On this episode we'll be taking a look at another Mattel figure, this time one that was released a while ago, and it is hard to come by depending on where you live. I'll also be doing one more Mattel Jurassic World review after this one, and then I'll finally get back to looking at Kenner's Series 2 stuff. Some of these Mattel figures are just really cool, and I don't feel like waiting to do another video on them. Also, I just want to say I created a Twitter account specifically for this channel, and I'll start using it frequently here soon. As of right now, it has a whopping 0 followers. But I just created it, and I wanted to use it just to give people an idea of what reviews I'm working on, and give you guys some extra pictures, and see new things that I add to my collection. I'll include a link in the description, and don't worry, this is the only time I'm going to bring this up during a video. I'll always just include it in the description from now on. I'm not a big fan of self-promoting stuff within a video, and I plan on keeping it that way. But enough with all that. The figure we are looking at today is the Jurassic World Legacy Collection Spinosaurus. Before we dive into the details of this figure, let's take a quick look at the packaging. Here's the front of the box. I remember when this figure was revealed, I was worried it was going to be the same size as the Legacy T-Rex, mainly because of the similar way that they are packaged. I'm glad it ended up much larger than that T-Rex. And here's the back of the box. This figure is pretty large, and is about the same size as the Thrash and Throw T-Rex, which was the largest dinosaur that Mattel had produced at that point. They have both since been dethroned by the Indominus Rex. The Spinosaurus stands 10 inches tall at its tail, in its more neutral pose, and is 20.5 inches long from head to tail. The sculpt on this one is pretty good overall. It goes without saying really that this is intended to represent the film canon version of a Spinosaurus, and not modern depictions and understandings of what the animal looked like. So as far as movie accuracy goes, it's decent. Like the Indominus and a few of the other Mattel figures, it suffers from having a shorter tail. The proportions in general on this one are sort of all over the place. The feet are large and the sail seems a bit small. It definitely falls under the more cartoony looking dinosaurs in Mattel's line. And I think Hasbro's old animatronic Spinosaurus from their Jurassic Park 3 line is still the most film accurate. Unlike that one though, this one can actually stand on its own really well. Okay, so there is some issues with it, but there's also a lot of good things about this sculpt too. There's plenty of detail throughout the body, with all the things you'd expect from Mattel by now. There's a variety of different scales, bumps, and you can even make out its ribcage. The sail is a highlight, as it should be on this figure, and it looks awesome. Despite being more cartoony, the head on this still makes me feel that it is indeed the Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus. It looks pretty fierce. Moving on to the paint, Mattel was definitely trying to capture the look for the Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus, as the color scheme is pretty close. The main color of this figure is dark gray, but there's also some lighter gray found in different parts of the body and legs. There is white paint that runs along the belly and underneath the tail. It looks good, but I think the film version had a lot more brown, which is entirely absent on this figure. The sail sports red, white, and gray stripes. This isn't an exact match for the film version, as I think it had some blue in there instead of all gray. There was also an additional white pattern over the sail. But at the same time, this was a $25 figure, and the paint on these things can only be so complicated nowadays. It still captures the essence of what it looked like in the film. Before we move on to the head, I just want to point out that this figure actually includes both black painted fingernails and toenails. a rarity among Mattel Jurassic figures, as I feel most of them have unpainted fingernails. The head on this figure is painted really well, and features more red paint than anything else, which is true to the film version. The only thing absent really is some of the white coloring it had in the movie. Also worth noting is that this figure has some issues with paint flaking off. I've seen this on some other Mattel Jurassic figures, but it really seems common on the Spinosaurus figures, just something to be aware of. Looking at the mouth, you'll find white painted teeth and inside a red tongue, with the rest of the mouth also being this red color. Last but not least on the head, it also has green eyes with black pupils, that look great and are another thing true to the film. Moving on to the articulation, it has 9 basic points, not counting the head's action features and points there. Its tail can move a good amount and feels pretty loose on my figure. You actually have to attach this tail after removing it from the package. Its legs can move both back and forth and in and out. They sort of snap into position like many of Mattel's other larger dinosaurs. Its feet can be turned as well, though the details on the sculpt break alignment when you do this. Its arms can also move, just a standard back and forth motion. The neck also has 2 different points, allowing you to turn the head slightly in different directions. Moving on to the action feature, it is similar to the Legacy T-Rex. There's a button near the back of its head that when pressed causes the mouth to open, and then it chomps back down when let go. Sometimes during this action you'll also see the tongue pop up. Like the Legacy Rex, I think earlier releases of this Spinosaurus had a different tongue, one that stayed up when the action feature was pressed. It's a pretty basic feature, but it works well enough. I wouldn't normally talk about Rarity for a newer figure, but I think it's worth talking about with this one. As I'm sure many of you already know, the distribution on this figure was a bit of a mess. I know it was released in some countries, but many have yet to see this one, or ever will. It did release in the US, but it was very limited. It only appeared on Target's online store at bizarre hours. I think when I got mine it was like 5 in the morning and a few appeared on the Target app briefly. The ways to get this figure was and still is not ideal. But luckily the Sculpt is seeing another release soon with both battle damage and a different coat of paint. Hopefully that one is more obtainable for everyone. Even with the retool of this figure coming out though, I have a feeling this figure is only going to get more expensive and sought after among collectors. The prices on eBay have settled to around $100 right now, but I don't know how long this will last. They may come down a bit temporarily with the new release, but if past Jurassic figures are anything to go by, certain releases that had repaints are still considered more valuable than the reissues. Time will tell though. If you really want this version, I wouldn't wait too much longer. But if you just want the sculpt and don't care about the paint, there's another option on the way. Before I give my rating for this figure, here's a quick comparison with other figures. Here it is with a Mattel 3 3/4 scale human and a Kenner 4-inch human. Here it is with the Coelurus. Here it is with the Ceratosaurus. Here it is with the Albertosaurus. And finally, here it is with the Indominus Rex and Tyrannosaurus Rex. For a rating out of 10, I give this one an 8. Its huge size makes this one really stand out. And it's awesome that Mattel offers a variety of different sized dinosaurs. The paint job is pretty good, despite the paint flaking, and the articulation is fine. Its cartoony look isn't for everyone though, and could use a longer tail. Like I already mentioned before, the high price is definitely something to consider, but if that doesn't bother you, it is a pretty awesome figure to add to the collection. I recommend this one, and can't wait to compare it to the battle damage version. And that does it for the Jurassic World Legacy Collection Spinosaurus. Thanks for watching and see you next time.